I think that this might be the most misunderstood country I've been to so far. And that's saying something. The places I go tend to be complex. But Bangladesh, you took it to a whole different level. I'm now a bit embarrassed to admit my initial impression of Bangladesh was more than a bit off. I had these mental images of poverty, overcrowded slums, and impossibly dirty air. Of course, these things will be found in Bangladesh. Its capital city, Dhaka, holds distinctions like
the most polluted city in the world.
Like the most densely populated city in the most densely populated country on earth.
But these labels are simply way too one-dimensional for a place as layered and intense as Bangladesh. They don't tell you about Bangladesh's unlikely and unprecedented rise from poverty to a surging economic powerhouse. They won't tell you all the reasons Dhaka has become packed with the struggles and dreams of its newcomers, and how this points to the ways we all are connected. This is a complex, intense place. This is Bangladesh. Now we're floating on the Buriganga River, an important passageway that has always served as a route for trade, for commerce, and for livelihoods in Bangladesh. Now connects people from climate-vulnerable situations to the hope, the potential, the prospect of new lives and new opportunities. Like most journeys to Bangladesh, mine begins in Dhaka. I'll be honest, when a city is most known for pollution and crowds, it doesn't exactly shoot to the top of my list. But you've probably heard me say it before. There's always more to the story. Upon arrival, first impressions live up to the hype. Crowded streets, traffic, warm temperatures, dust, and tannish skies. And all these things are at their mildest. I'm apparently here during the gentlest part of the year, winter. In a few months, the temperatures will soar, haze will intensify, and the patience of the crowds of people here will wear thin. What is it about Dhaka that makes it so crowded? All across the world, cities are growing. In lower and middle income countries, about 10% of the population has moved from a rural to an urban setting in just the past 4 years. And this trend is likely to continue, especially in the Sahel, Central America, and right here in South Asia. So, as all this is going on globally, why does Dhaka stand out? Before my arrival, I did some research. Okay, so I've been looking into this, and it looks like there are a few different reasons people say Dhaka is so especially crowded. It's a city of dreams and ambition. Rural people head to the capital hoping to improve their standard of living. They want to put their kids in a better school. They want to get jobs in factories and business centers. It's a pretty standard explanation. This makes sense, but it's not unique to Dhaka. This happens in pretty much every country where you have one predominant metro area. Some people are saying the design of Dhaka distributes people and activity in a way that just makes it more congested. And there are a lot of people online who especially want to pin this on bicycle rickshaws. I did not know there was a pretty big movement to try and ban them. I mean, the image of Bangladesh without its bicycle rickshaws is hard to imagine. It would be like the US without cars. These are hallmarks of Bengali transportation, but yeah, I get what people are saying. They're bulky, they take up space, they move slow. Guess some folks are willing to make that exchange. Maybe Dhaka is simply a microcosm of Bangladesh as a whole. See, Bangladesh has the 8th largest population in the world, but compared to the other countries on the top 10 list, it has nowhere near the amount of space. It's bordered by India on 3 sides, and to the south, the Indian Ocean. And every year it loses more and more land due to sea level rise. This is where we're starting to unpack those layers. The city of Dhaka is bordered by rivers, which bring people to the city, but also make it harder to expand and make infrastructure for all those people. I think if you're trying to understand Dhaka, one of your best bets is going to be to start at the river.
300 and 400 years ago, Dhaka started to grow by the bank of Buriganga, and over the course of time, with the population pressure, it started to grow towards the north and northeastern part of the city. Though there was one unique thing for Dhaka, which is bounded and surrounded by 4 river systems, basically Buriganga, Turag, Balu, Shitolokha. These 4 rivers are like it's like a natural protection system for those days. But it has a limitation, which is it did not allow you to expand unlimited. But we have another big problem, which is with the structure of the river. But the reason I'm telling all these things is river is the basic ecological organ in this land that actually influenced the human settlement everywhere.
So this brings us to the Buriganga, the main artery for life in Bangladesh. Here we find boatmen waiting to transport people across the river or further downstream. So we're at the Dhaka riverfront right now, and we're trying to see if we can talk to one of the boatmen. From what I understand, many of them are displaced from the south of Bangladesh due to climate change, and now operate boat transport here as a new means of survival. We're going to try and hear one of their stories.
আমার কামরুলা স্যার প্রতিদিন নৌকা চালায় 13-14 বছর দক্ষিণের থেকে মানে বরিশাল থেকে ঢাকা কেন আসছে তিন কামের জায়গা আমাকে লিস্ট করে ফার্ম করছে এই জায়গায় কাজ কাম করুন আর লবণের পানি বাড়ছে না কমছে আগে থেকে লবণের পানি বাড়ছে এখন সেই জন্য দাম পান হয় না তখন মোটামুটি আপনার চলে এখন মোটামুটি চলে হালকাভাবে মানে ইনকাম কম হয় আচ্ছা তো ওই এলাকার থেকে মোটামুটি ভালো
Talking to the boatmen at the Buriganga helped me realize most of the workers you'll find at this river aren't from Dhaka. They've come from other parts of the country looking for work. I was also told that for a look at the bigger picture, I should come by in the morning. So, I did. Okay, we're at the loading port of the Buriganga River, right here for a lot of people when you immediately come to Dhaka and don't have any opportunities to work. This might be one spot where you can find a way to make a quick income. Folks here are loading up sand and building materials off of a boat and bringing them over to the loading yard. It is intense work. It's all physical labor. It's only just gotten started. It's a bit past 7. The sun's not even up yet. It's still cool. It's not going to stay cool. So most people carry around 200 loads of these a day. Each load merits about 2 cents worth of pay. Someone told me I should get a look from inside the ship, which meant literally walking the plank. I had all kinds of expensive camera gear on me, and I didn't want to go so slowly that I held up all these busy people at work. But eventually, I was talked into it. They make it look so much easier than it is. Alright, guess we made that crossing successfully, and now we know what goes on that ship. This coal and cement right here will likely be used to build more infrastructure around Dhaka. There is a huge demand for that. Ironically, this demand grows as people come for jobs like this.
আমার বাসা হলো চাপাই নবাবগঞ্জ তাও মোটামুটি 30 বছর না আসা যাওয়ার পরে এটা আসছি কালকে পরশু দিন এসেছি চলে আমার কোনো সবাই এই নাই যে খাটি পাল্লা চালাই বাড়ির ঘর নেমে গেছিল এই তো 3 বছর আগে নদীর ভাঙনে চরবাটা ইউনিয়ন কোটায় ভেঙেছে 4-5টা ইউনিয়ন গাঁলিয়া নদী
ওখান থেকে কাজ করে নদী সিরেস্তা আমরা এই যমুনা গাঙ্গের এইদিকে থাক সব খালি নদী আর এসে রুজান থাক 3 বন্যার আগে ঠেলা গাড়ি বেশি ওই ওখানে যা গাড়ি আর এখানে ওর কাম করে 5-7-8 বছর হয়েছে মনে হয় এই ঘাটে
আপনার সারাদিনে কতগুলাই করে
200, 250, 300 খুব টাইনে টুইনে হয়।
These jobs are difficult, but people are working them in an attempt to increase their incomes and improve their lives. When it comes to poverty and economic growth, Bangladesh has had an unusual trajectory. Bangladesh gained its independence in the 1970s. That story was a violent and messy process and takes a lot more time to unpack properly. But it left Bangladesh's population really disadvantaged. It only had a life expectancy of 45 years and a literacy rate of 20%. So how did Bangladesh move forward? You might be wearing the answer. Clothes. Check the tags. This country established itself as the epicenter for textile production. And perhaps some of the most widely known things about Bangladesh are its garment factories. Up till now, half of Bangladesh is employed by clothing production. And this coincided with the era of fast fashion to keep a steady demand. Of course, this isn't something you can talk about in black and white terms. It led to huge economic advancement for Bangladeshis, and 4/5 of these workers are women, but at the same time, it was catastrophic for the air and water in the country, and the conditions for workers were often brutal.
We do not have any comprehensive study how much destruction it had. If we calculate it properly, I think garments is a disaster for this country, not a blessing.
An 8-story building collapsed today, killing at least 145 people.
That said, the basic income helped workers get to the point where they could unionize, bargain for better conditions, educate themselves and their kids to find even more work opportunities, and this created an interesting dynamic. Your average Bangladeshi worker has surpassed your average Indian or Pakistani in terms of income, and the life expectancy has gone up to 72. Bangladesh is at least 75% literate. And these are massive improvements in only about 2 generations worth of time. Many people see Bangladesh continuing this trajectory, and that would make it a $1 trillion upper middle income country by the year 2040, surpassing places like Thailand, Vietnam, or the Philippines. But if it's gonna get there, it needs to contend with a few things, among them climate change, and the fact that, to get to this point, many of its people were subject to really difficult lives. Just across the river, we came across a section where old, non-functioning ships were left. People were coming up to these ships to take apart different components so they could be reused. This was the loudest spot I came upon in Dhaka, a city already known for being loud. But the constant pounding of hammers on steel drove home the repetitive intensity of where we were. In the alleyways, people welded, hammered, and cut through steel. I heard plenty of stories about people's physical injuries while working these informal jobs, and then I nearly saw one. A group carrying a large panel of metal nearly dropped it on a few people's feet. So I've been seeing people who work some of the most difficult jobs out there, and they all come from the southern part of Bangladesh. Many of them have had to move here because of water salination, because of climate change, because their old lives weren't livable anymore, and now they're here working these jobs that are incredibly physically demanding and unsafe. And this is a consequence when you don't have a safe and resilient home. The bigger story behind Bangladesh's rise, the crowds and congestion in Dhaka, and the future of this country were starting to come into focus. From the boat rowers of the Buriganga, to the welders in the alleyway, to the people bringing coal back and forth from the ships. I hadn't met any who were originally from Dhaka. Dhaka's working class largely comes from the country's rural areas. Many are displaced by cyclones and rising sea levels. Many were used to farming until the salination of their farms obliterated their harvests. Other people lost homes in storms, their displacement being much more instantaneous.
A tropical cyclone is strengthening in the Bay of Bengal.
Bangladesh is one of the countries at the forefront of the Vulnerable 20, a group of climate-vulnerable countries. Their geographic location, socioeconomic conditions, and rising population.
Bangladesh is one of the most climate vulnerable countries.
Whether it's the toxicity of rivers like the Buriganga, the traffic around the streets of Dhaka, or the heat waves that take a deadly toll on South Asia every year, the dangerous jobs millions of people have to work, or the dangerous air quality throughout Bangladesh, threads of climate change are interwoven throughout each story. But of course, there's more to this story. Soon I'll be leaving Dhaka for the Sundarbans, the southeastern coast of Bangladesh, where sea level rise has taken its toll. But I'm not just going to show you scenes of devastation. I've been told that this holds one of the few important success stories on climate resilience. Success stories that the rest of the world urgently needs to learn from.